Good afternoon. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A jury has just found Ian Mitcham guilty of first-degree murder for the death of Allison Feldman. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Curtis.
And I'm Tram Mai. Mitcham was accused of murdering Feldman in her Scottsdale home back in February of 2015. That verdict coming down just a few minutes ago. The 31-year-old died of head trauma after being beaten to death. For 3 years, investigators had no suspect in the case until they turned to new technology that Arizona authorities had never used before: familial DNA.
Investigators say they identified Mitcham as the suspect after DNA evidence from the crime scene closely matched genetic material belonging to Mitcham's brother, who was already in prison for a different crime. 12 News journalist William Pitts was just in the courtroom. He has just arrived out front of the courthouse. He's live now with the details on what happened. Will?
Yeah, really, it was not. There's always a little bit of a surprise possibility in a case like this, but really, when you looked at the jury as they came in, you kind of had a feeling how they were going to go. Absolutely nobody looked at Ian Mitcham as they came in. They all looked at the family. Harley Feldman, her dad was right in the front row. They all were looking at him as they filed in. I was sitting next to a Scottsdale police officer who came in for the sentencing also, and when the first count came down, murder, first degree, guilty, he kind of choked up a little bit and was texting, I think, some other investigators in the case about, the verdict that just came down. And then the other ones came down also: sexual assault and burglary, also guilty. And really, there was a huge sigh of relief, just an inhale or an exhale from everybody in the family that had packed that courtroom. And really, upstairs, it's a very small courtroom. Not a whole lot of people could have seats in there, but it was very, very full. And for Ian Mitcham's part, really no reaction from him at all. And there's been very little reaction this entire trial. He's been stoic, he's been quiet, he's been sitting there at the defense table, looking at witnesses, being engaged in the trial, making notes and things like that, but really showing no emotion or expression, even when autopsy photos were shown, when crime scene photos were shown, during all of the accusations against him. Really, he's just been sitting very quietly the entire time. They're going now into the sentencing phase, and that will start actually on Wednesday. So this case has been going on for months now. Started last year in November. This case will continue to keep going into potentially May and into June is how far they've blocked this out. But really, the family members that were up there for this, and Harley Feldman has been up there every single day of this trial and has been out there trying to keep Allison Feldman's memory alive since this case happened. Just a lot of relief for all of those family members, guys.
Really, William, 11 years in the making and a whole lot of legal wrangling there. A huge, even though there's never any closure, but obviously this is what the family wanted: a guilty on all three: sexual assault, first-degree murder, and burglary.
And really, based on the makeup of the jury was a lot of older men and a lot of older women, actually, was the makeup totally. We don't know exactly which ones were alternates and which ones were the actual jury members who were deliberating in there. But that, you have to wonder if there was some sort of a identification, where they kind of see themselves in Harley's position, seeing him there day after day and realizing that, they're not too much different than he is, relating to him a little bit as all of this evidence was presented. And believe me, in a lot of the cases, it was very, very graphic evidence also. There were crime scene photos of Allison Feldman's body. There were autopsy photos of the body. They were warned ahead of time that they would be graphic, and certainly they were. Graphic enough that Harley Feldman did not leave the room, but he was given a warning before those slides and photos were shown so that he could look down if he didn't want to see any of that, and really, who would? So yeah, this is one of those cases where all of the evidence was presented. The defense's case required a little bit of disbelief, I think. The defense's case was basically that the DNA evidence of Ian Mitcham was inside Allison Feldman's house, a woman he had no connection to, by all accounts did not know, had never even met. But that didn't mean, the defense said, that he had killed her, only that the DNA evidence was in the house and on various items that were used in the commission of the crime, including a glass bottle that they believe was a weapon that was used as well. But the defense was maintaining that, just because the DNA is there doesn't mean that he actually killed her. There were other possibilities that they say prosecutors and Scottsdale police did not follow up on. Of course, prosecutors say DNA puts you in the room and you have no other reason to be there. That's enough evidence, guys.
And it's hard to believe, Will, that had Ian Mitcham's brother not been in jail for a separate crime, we might not be here today. Although you have to believe at some point they would have put the pieces together with or without that familial DNA. But certainly, go figure, two brothers wind up committing crimes, different crimes, but crimes nonetheless. And that is what ultimately allowed them to zero in on Ian Mitcham.
Yeah, and really, there was circumstantial evidence that would have put somebody else in that house, a couple of people actually, but the DNA came down to an unidentified individual, and then once they tried that familial DNA, of course, that's when they found the matches. But that is also what set this case back 11 years to get to this point, is because the legal challenges involved, this being Arizona's first case of familial DNA identification, it just kept going through appeal and appeal and appeal, and also in the collection of that evidence. Scottsdale police ran the DNA match on a bottle of Ian Mitcham's blood from a DUI stop. They did not get a separate search warrant before they did that. That was another cause for appeal. Went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court before it finally was decided there, and then came all the way back down to where this trial could continue. That months of trial on top of that. But yes, if not for that familial DNA match, who knows how long it might have taken to find a suspect in the case.
Yeah. Will, you've got a lot of work to do as you get ready for the 12 News at 4 and 5 and 6 with continuing coverage on this. We're going to let you go and do your thing, and we'll see you in about 20 minutes for 12 News at 4. But right now we want to turn to defense attorney Josh Colesrud. Josh, you were telling me a moment ago that in your mind the defense made a mistake. What happened?
Now, it's easy to play armchair quarterback, and I just want to say that, these cases are incredibly difficult to defend. But when you have a case where really the sole piece of evidence is the DNA, that's it, and you have a circumstance where the defendant had never met the victim before, the jury wants to hear a reasonable explanation of how his DNA could be found in her home, other than what the prosecution is saying. Now, again, the defense doesn't have to show anything as their right, but from a human perspective, they should have said something like this was a conspiracy. The police had already made mistakes in this case. Even the Arizona Supreme Court said that the police had violated Ian Mitcham's constitutional rights. So they had a little bit there, but none of that came out during the entire trial. And so the jury was just left with, hey, this guy's DNA is located in at least 5 or 6 places throughout the house. There's no way that touch DNA, that, I touch here, it gets on your clothes, you might be able to put it somewhere else, could be in 5 different locations in someone's home.
Right, and then you have the whole bleach factor.
Yep.
That this Ian Mitcham tried to pull a fast one.
William made an interesting observation about the jury.
Yeah.
He was saying that it was a makeup of kind of older men and women. And we always know that, there is strategy when you're trying to select the jury members to your favor, the defense or the prosecution. Do you think that played into this as well, maybe relatable, as William was saying, to Allison Feldman's father?
No, I don't think so. I think most trial attorneys will tell you that those types of stereotypes can be completely different. You can have the same makeup on a different jury and get a completely different result. But what I thought was really interesting about this jury was how fast the verdict was on a first-degree death penalty murder. It was a little over a day, about a day and a half. And that tells you that they really and strongly believed the prosecution. Now, it's important because we have the death penalty phase coming up. And that means they're emotionally charged. They didn't believe anything that the defense put forward. And because they found the defendant guilty of this sexual assault, that really helps the prosecution with proving just one aggravating factor, that it was cruel, depraved, or heinous. And the fact that the killing was not instantaneous, that there was signs of strangulation, that he took his time. I think that they're going to have a very good shot at getting the death penalty. Now, here's an interesting statistic. Maricopa County receives the death penalty in about 54% of the cases that actually go to the death penalty phase. So if you're looking at the stats, they have about a flip, you flip a coin and that would be it. But I think they have a really strong case with this particular jury, especially because of how fast the verdict was.
And when it comes to familial DNA, this was the first case in Arizona. I'm sure there have been others across the country, but a landmark case for us in Arizona, right?
It's going to set the precedent going forward. And another notable case where they used familial DNA analysis was the Brian Kohberger case up in Idaho.
Okay, we're gonna go to Harley Feldman, the father of Allison Feldman, the murder victim. He is talking right now.
It got to me a little bit. It's been a long haul, and I've done this for Allison the whole way, and we won today. It was avenged as much as we can.
The whole room was really emotional, really on all sides. What was that like to see and hear?
You know, she had so many friends, and they all came today. And they came to honor her like they always have. And so it was special to have everybody here. When we had her funeral in Minnesota, 300 people came. And when we had her memorial service in Scottsdale, another 300 people came. And I thought, I don't know 600 people, but that support and the love for her was there today.
Is there a sense of justice, closure at all with this verdict?
Well, the problem is we have the life sentence. We'll never have her back, and that's the really hard part. So, I mean, is there justice? I'm not glad the verdict went the way that it did, but we can't bring her back, and that's the really hard part.
How would you describe the last 11 years? And was there points where you think you'd ever get to today?
Yeah, I knew we'd get there. It took longer than I anticipated. That it started with the familial DNA search that I helped make legal here. And I have since found out there's been 24 cases that have been solved with familial DNA that probably wouldn't have been solved any other way. So Allison has a legacy here now, which we're happy for. We just wish it hadn't had to have happened this way.
What's your message to other families who are waiting for their own day in court or their own day to seek some sort of justice?
You know, I think the court system works, but it works at its own pace. And sometimes you have to have patience to get there. Some people I know will never get solved because they don't have a criminal that's been found. But you have to have faith and hang in as best you can.
After a decade, long and hard time, how might you guys move forward with this?
I run Parents of Murdered Children here in Phoenix, and when I help other people that are going through the same thing, it helps me. And so I'm going to spend my time helping others. And because I know how difficult it is to go through. I understand what they're saying. I've even had a call from police departments to speak to victims because I understand what they're going through. And so that's what I'm going to do.
What will you do tonight, Harley?
Not sure. Probably just relax. We have to work on victim impact statements and other things to do. Going to call my other daughter and some friends of ours and kind of mellow out, I think.
Harley, one of the jurors in affirmation to the verdict said absolutely.
Yes.
What is your response to that, and do you have anything to say to the jurors if they someday might see this?
Well, I think I was so impressed with the jurors who listened to 4 months of testimony, some very long days, and they were all very attentive. And the jurors who said absolutely did it with emotion. He had really thought about it and got there. So I'm very pleased with all the jurors, that the tension that they put in and the thought they went through. And it's a difficult decision to potentially subject someone to the death penalty. But they did a superb job. That's all I can say.
Anything else you wanted to say?
No, I appreciate all the support we've had from the media also, and all the people in Phoenix. We're not from here, but we've gotten a lot of friends. And Allison moved here to go to U of A and loved the Phoenix area and Arizona. So we're happy that we've moved here, and we've tremendous support from all the people that live here.
Thanks, Harley.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Maybe the most profound line out of that, and I think, Tram, I saw you when he said it, and that is when he was asked about the sentence that Ian Mitcham was found guilty, he said, well, we've been sentenced to a life sentence of dealing with our daughter. And knowing Harley Feldman, we both have had a chance to talk to him. As parents, the anguish and the grief and the stoic strength of that family, especially Harley, because the mom understandably couldn't go. So Harley was always there going. But maybe closure's overrated, Josh.
Well, I'll tell you, from a criminal attorney's perspective, when I heard those raw statements that the family is the one receiving the life sentence, as somebody who wants justice, I want the person to get more than what the family has, which is the death penalty. And so that makes the death penalty seem even more reasonable under the circumstances.
That just weighed so heavily, and it was just, I don't think I've ever heard a family member say something of that magnitude.
Yeah.
Right now, we want to listen to one of the jurors who just stepped out of the courthouse.
No, I didn't. I know she has been guiding this, and the Scottsdale PD, the team behind all of this, just incredible. And honestly, her dad is the reason why this has gone to where it is today. She'd be so incredibly proud of him. So proud of him. And no, never lost hope.
For people who've never met Allison, how would you describe her best friend?
She lit up any room that she would go into. She just had that presence to her that you would just be calm in any room with her. Her smile was so infectious. And she just was loyal. She was everything you would ask for in a best friend, a sister, anything. She was incredible.
We asked your father how we might move forward after this, and he said helping victims and victims' families. As her best friend, what would you say to that?
Oh man, just the fact that her legacy is living on, like Harley said. 24 cases have been solved because of familial DNA, and that was all her dad. It was all her dad. And it's just going to continue, and that is her legacy, and there's no greater thing than that.
I know you were here pretty much every day of trial. Was that hard to sit through everything during this?
Yeah. There were definitely days that were longer, harder. But she would have done the exact same thing if this was reversed. There's no doubt in my mind. And she deserved that, and deserved to, have me be there with him too. And I didn't want him to be there by himself. And she just would have been so proud of everybody fighting for her in that room.
I wanted to ask you one more question because I probably missed it, so sorry if you said it.
It's okay.
What was that like to hear guilty, guilty, guilty?
My heart is still racing. Peace. A sense of peace. That she gets to finally rest in peace. And that justice that she has so long deserved is finally here. Like I said, I mean, it will never be closure. There's never going to be closure to this. But it is justice. And that is something that will just settle all of us at this point.
Before we let you go, could you just speak and spell your first and last name again really quickly?
Katie, Katie, last name is Wood, Wood.
And best friend.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.
And we apologize. That clearly was not a juror. That was Allison Feldman's friend who you just heard from. You know, Josh, when we asked you earlier before the verdict was read, what did you think would come down? And you, without a doubt, believe that he would be found guilty.
Yeah, you know, this case seemed pretty simple when you just broke everything down. And that is, you know, why was Ian Mitcham's DNA in a house of a murdered victim? What possible reason could it be there? And we know that somebody burglarized the house because there were items that were missing. We know that the victim was sexually assaulted. And his DNA was found on a doorknob. It was found outside on her car. It was found on the floor just outside the bleach area. And what reason would there ever be for his DNA to be there? And there's absolutely no reason. And the jury saw through what the defense was trying to sell. And really, after listening to 4 months of testimony, 4 months of witnesses, 4 months of evidence, to come down with a verdict in just a little over a day, about a day and a half, is truly remarkable.
And can we read anything, Josh, into how quickly they came to that decision? Guilty of murder, guilty of sexual assault, guilty of burglary. Will that, their belief that he is guilty of all of those things play into the sentencing?
I think that this verdict shows that the jury is feeling the emotionally charged situation, that they truly understand what this family went through when their friend and their daughter was brutally murdered and sexually assaulted. They see and they feel that, and I felt like this verdict was a sign for justice and what's to come.
And as a defense attorney,
yeah,
do you feel that that certainty from a jury at some point, like we're in trouble?
So, absolutely. So what the defense has to prove was that the homicide, the murder in this case, happened quickly, or at least that the prosecution cannot prove that the actual death portion of what happened was as prolonged as what they say. The problem is there's evidence of strangulation. There was petechiae on the eyes, there's bruising around the trachea, and so, you know, a lot of that stuff doesn't happen to a corpse. That can only happen to somebody who's still alive.
Right.
So they have a really tough hill to climb. Now, you never know how someone on the jury may feel about the death penalty. There could be what prosecutors would call a rogue jury, that, you know, even though there's overwhelming evidence that they've met their burden of proof, that because they are against the death penalty, you never know if they're going to be a holdout and it's not going to be enough for the prosecution.
And is that ever asked of a juror when they're going through the panel? Are you against the death penalty? Would you be opposed to it?
Absolutely. But, you know, as you know, I know firsthand, having done many jury trials, that not all jurors are 100% and completely honest with their answers. And you can't ever go in somebody's mind. So, you know, that's why there's nothing in the criminal law world that is a slam dunk. It doesn't matter how much evidence you think you have, you never really know what was going to happen until today. I mean, the family of the victim in this case has to be looking at this jury like they're their family members now, because they actually believed them. They believed the victim. They're on their side. And that's so comforting for them to know that the community now is supporting them.
Yeah, you can feel that. All right, Josh, we appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And of course, we will have much more coming up in just about a minute on 12 News at 4 as we continue to give you live coverage of the Allison Feldman trial. A verdict again came down. Ian Mitcham guilty on all counts of first-degree murder, burglary, and sexual assault. Again, we'll see you back here in just a minute for 12 News at 4.